Hi, it is wedding. It's Tuesday. It's live online. So glad to be with you tonight. My phone is busy charging. I hope that it lasts the whole session because I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be doing tonight. Where tomorrow is not just another day. Don't you just love that title? I hope it's got you thinking and intrigued as to what we're going to be talking about tonight. And as always, winning is keys to living a winning lifestyle. And so winning is all about practical tools, challenges, encouragement, things that you can apply in your life, things that you can put into practice and hopefully see some kind of change, because we all want to grow. Hey, we don't want to get to a place where we just kind of just stagnating. We want to get to a place where we're growing and where we're becoming and where we're evolving and where we're learning and where we're not being couch potatoes. Good to see you, King and Queen. Glad to see those two big sparks of flame. Hey, Zama, good to see you. And so, yeah, again, if you're new to this platform, hey, Ronica, don't forget to please like, share. Sharing's always good. If you do nothing else, then just share. Send those emojis going up if something kind of just whacks you between the eyes at some point in tonight's session. Hey, Linda, good to see you. So nice seeing all the regulars. Maybe some of you who don't post on the chat can let me know you're there. Maybe one day in the future, maybe that's your next, just to let me know, hey, I'm here, give me a shout out. And so, as always, hope you've got definitely something warm to drink because it's been freezing. Definitely something to take notes with. Hey, Celeste, good to see you. And I'm really, as always, I'm always looking forward to doing what we do at Winning because it speaks to me as much as it speaks to you. And I think that's always good because we're learning together. It's not like I've got it all together and I'm just speaking down to you who need to catch up and learn and grow. No, we're actually all on the same level. We're all growing. We're all learning. We're all evolving. We're all making mistakes. Hey, and messing up. And it's not that you make the mistake, it's that the resilience is I bounce back. And I think that's the ability that we have in the Lord because we all get knocked down, but it's the ability in Him. What do I need to learn? What do I need to leave behind? And I'm bouncing back. And I think that's maybe a good statement to kind of introduce tonight's session. So here we go. Hope you're ready. My name is Pastor Debbie, those of you who are brand new. And I am the lead pastor at Authentic City Church, an amazing, dynamic, awesome church in Kenilworth. And so here we go. You ready? So a little bit of TMI, if that's okay with you. I love beautiful clothes. I don't do a lot of online shopping for clothing because I love going in to the store and I love feeling the fabric and I just love the whole experience. I just love beautiful clothes. I mean, I'm also able to look at very expensive, beautiful clothes and not buy them. And I'm well known, I'm renowned for being a sale purchase person. So I'm able to see a beautiful garment, see it at its full price and wait until it's on sale. But I love clothes and I get very attached to my clothes. So I can remember who bought it for me, where did I buy it? And I mean, I've got stuff in my wardrobe. I've got my maternity clothes. Just a little full disclosure, my daughter's 30. I have my maternity clothes. I've got clothes that I wore when I started teaching in 1986. I've got clothes that are outdated. I've got clothes that don't suit me. But I find it so difficult to get rid of them because, I remember special moments that I experienced when I was wearing the clothes. And so it's a whole thing for me. But the bottom line is that it gets to a point where the clothes are just accumulating and accumulating because whilst I'm not giving anything away, I am also buying new things. So you've got the not giving anything away and buying new things. And of course, you start building up an avalanche of clothing where it's just masses, not hoarding, but a little bit borderline. And so, I sort of hold on to this stuff and think, well, maybe in the future I'll wear it. Maybe that'll come back into fashion. So often things do come back into fashion. But I got to a big point last year where I thought, you know what, I can't keep doing this because the avalanche of growing clothing is just taking control. I can't find anything. It's like sort of scratching in my clothes and then finding something that I'd actually forgotten I had. And I thought, no, this cannot go on. It's chaos. And so I decided to declutter and I gave a whole lot of stuff away to charity. And now I'm selective on what I keep. I don't keep everything. I look for things that are maybe period pieces that won't date, but like gimmick fashion pieces, I'm not keeping that. And it kind of reminded me of so often we collect stuff in our lives. We collect all kinds of things in our lives. We accumulate unresolved anger, we accumulate hurt, we accumulate disappointment. And it's the same with the clothes. Unless we have a sort out, those things just accumulate and accumulate and squash everything out, because the avalanche of clothing got to a point where there was actually no space to put the new stuff in. So then I was hanging the new stuff outside of my cupboard. Then outside of my cupboard, there was no more space for clothing. And it gets like that in our lives. We don't deal with stuff and we think that if we ignore it, it's just going to go away. And often the whole ethos around coping is, tomorrow's another day and, it'll sort itself out and I don't feel like dealing with it now. I'm just going to keep on keeping on. The bottom line is, tomorrow is not just another day. If we're not dealing with stuff in our lives, it will accumulate and squash out the good stuff and contaminate who we are as people. Because so often we'll say, oh, tomorrow's just another day. I'll get over it. Time heals many things. Yeah, I guess it does, but only if we're facing it and dealing with it. Nothing disappears. My avalanche of clothing was not going to just disappear. I had to actively sift, sort, chuck out what needed to be chucked out, donate what needed to be donated, and that's what I want to look at in our lives tonight, because tomorrow is not just another day. We need to make sure that we're sorting stuff out in our lives, in our hearts, so that when we get into tomorrow, we're actually starting on a pretty good footing and not on the back foot with baggage and baggage and baggage and baggage. And so scripture that I'm using tonight, so powerful, Proverbs 4:23 in the NIV, above all else, sure, that's already a good statement, above all else, which means this is important, guys. Make sure you get it. Above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows out of it. Wow. Guard your heart, because everything you do and who you and I are comes from our heart. It is the central point of who we are. It's a big part of our identity. Now, if we've got unresolved stuff in there, it's going to leak in the way we speak, think, act, what we feel. And so it's terribly important that we need to actually deal with stuff, because anything we don't face, unpack and deal with just accumulates. And so I just want to look at one aspect around that term, guard your heart. It speaks of responsibility, and it's a definite C to A. It's a call to action. It's our responsibility to guard our heart. It's our responsibility to deal with our stuff. It's our responsibility to allow or disallow things gaining access into our heart, because it is the seat of who we are. It's core. It's the essence of who we are. So let's get to the heart of the matter tonight. Let's be honest, our hearts are quite fragile, hey? We often, so many songs, how many songs have been written about brokenhearted? And it's an actual medical condition. So, with emotional trauma and loss and grieving, our hearts can actually break. So, our hearts are not only fragile, but they also, hey guys who've just jumped on, Ayanda, Shane, good to see all of you. Our hearts also accumulate things. They accumulate hurt and disappointment and resentment. But tonight I want to look at what is good, healthy heart care practice along the lines of guard your heart. What does that mean? Let's break it down. Guard your heart doesn't mean hide it. Guard your heart doesn't mean shut down and shut everything and everyone out. What guard your heart means is to be careful with it, but don't confine your heart. And there's a very fine line between protecting your heart but not shutting everyone out. It's a fine line, and I want to unpack that tonight. It's a tricky balance. Think about it. We give our hearts to people. We give our hearts to work. We give our hearts to projects. If someone says to you, are you all in? It's like, I'm in heart and soul. And we do. We give our hearts into people and things and opportunities. And sometimes our heart is mishandled, hey? We give it into things, and what we're giving it into, whether it be a person, whether it be a project, it's often mishandled, and then our heart is hurt and damaged. I think sometimes our hearts can be broken, our hearts can be misunderstood. So here is where we need to guard our hearts so that God can guide us. He's not going to guard our hearts for us. That's our responsibility. Guarding is not reactive. It's very proactive. So often if we're hurt, I retract, or I disconnect from the person, or I disconnect from the situation. Guarding is not a disconnection. It's rather putting in protective mechanisms that keep you connected to people, to life in a healthy way. And I'm going to unpack that and see, how do we do that? The guarding your heart is, as I said, it's a protective. It's not a block out. It's not a big, in some properties have keep out sign. It's not a keep out sign, but it's guarding. I'm not keeping people out. I'm guarding what is in my heart. How many times do people just say, I've lost my joy? And that there's no God. So it's, we lose what's in there. So the guarding is not keeping people out. It's protecting and guarding what is in your heart. I know people who we often say it, or, she's got a wall around her, or he's got a wall around her. And that's often triggered by hurt, disappointment, broken trust. And a wall is almost impenetrable. If you think of a solid wall, there's no gate, there's no access, it's just big wall. And that shuts everyone out, which is often shutting out the good and the bad. And that's often where people get incredibly lonely, because they've been so traumatized and want to protect themselves. But in the process, they actually start becoming weaker because there's no accessibility of people in their lives. And we need people. We need to be in relationships. We are designed to be relational beings. I think sometimes what happens is one person will hurt us, and then we'll use a very broad brush and say all people can't be trusted. We need to try and keep things in a proper perspective. You had an incident with a person. You can't allow that to now blot out all people. There's a lot of good people out there. So guarding is discerning. Guarding is not barricading. Guarding is protecting. If you think about when you have an alarm system on your home, you are wanting to keep the wrong people out. It's a form of protection. It's wanting to block out the bad. But you don't keep the house alarm on all the time. When you have people coming who are friends, you deactivate the alarm so that people can gain access. But when you're not there and you feel the home may be vulnerable, you activate the alarm to keep the good stuff in, to keep the bad stuff out. But the bottom line, as a homeowner, you have the power and the authority to activate the alarm, to deactivate the alarm. You're in charge. And I guess that's what guarding your heart is pretty similar to. You know, it's like we need to live with our hearts wide open while keeping it covered. That sounds like such a paradox and a contradiction. You know, keeping open and also keeping it fully covered. How do we do that? Well, we do that by living intentionally and living with discernment. So we live being authentic. Isn't it interesting? If someone's being very artificial with you, you know it, hey? You can pick it up. It's like there's no warmth in what they're saying. The vocab, I guess it's like telesales. You know, they're reading a script, there's no heart in it, there's no warmth, there's no human to human connectedness. It's just words. We can't live life where we are functional in terms of the way we deal with people, because we won't build relationships by being functional. We have to allow access to our hearts in order to build relationships. But there needs to be a covering to keep what's in, and a discernment in terms of, oh, this is a situation I'm not feeling comfortable with. I need to activate the alarm. So it's not about just being polite and courteous with people. It's about being warm with people. It's about being real with people. So let's look at, how does the guard heart alarm work? An example, it can guide you away from unhealthy conversations. So maybe you sense a conversation is going to start becoming very gossip orientated. It's like you activate your heart alarm. I don't want to be in this conversation. I'm actually going to remove myself, because that's just going to contaminate. I guess you can add specific guards to your heart, like you add the guard of peace, of trust, of discernment, of wisdom and prayer. These guards don't shrink your life, they liberate it. So it's being very intentional about, are you protecting the good that's in your heart? Are you living intentionally to avoid contamination? And it's living very proactively. Now, obviously, hurts are going to creep in and stuff's going to creep in. But if you think, if an intruder gains access into your home, you don't just leave the intruder there. You don't set up the spare room for the intruder. You don't invite them to the breakfast table. No, because you know that the intruder has ill intention. So you move the intruder out. We need to be like that with our hearts. You know, sometimes we give things like unforgiveness, the guest bedroom. We invite them to dinner every night in our heart. And then we wonder why our lives are kind of just dissipating. We wonder why there's resentment and there's a bitterness and there's revenge. It's because we've allowed an intruder in who doesn't belong there. And we're going to speak about unforgiveness as we land in a few seconds. So the heart feels deeply. We've established that. It's the essence of who we are. It's the wellspring of life. If it's contaminated, the heart will contaminate our whole life. You know, if you think of when someone comes to your home, you first check who it is. You don't live with your gate open and your front door open and people can just access whenever they feel like it. We wouldn't do that with our home, but we often do it with our hearts. It's like we just allow whatever to happen. No, you need to be discerning and you need to guard. You need to have process in place. So it's dealing with bitterness and revenge. And it's like, no, I don't want to form an alliance with an enemy called resentment, like you don't want to form an alliance with an intruder who just wants to come in your home and steal your flat screen. So things like resentment and bitterness, there's no fruit in having them in our hearts. All they do is just poison and contaminate. And in addition, things like that push out joy, push out peace. They take up illegal occupancy, just like the analogy of the guy breaking into your home and you do nothing about it. He's taking up illegal occupancy. He doesn't belong in your home. He is an intruder. We're powerful people in Christ who can make decisions, deal with stuff. And I want to land with just a few thoughts on forgiveness. You know, the Bible instructs us to forgive. It's not a request. The Bible doesn't say if you feel like it, but forgiving someone's really hard. But the Bible said do it. And so if we love God, we do it. But I'd love you just to sort of ponder on a couple of thoughts I want to just land with you as we close tonight. I think the process of forgiveness starts with acknowledge the hurt. Is to actually say, you know, I'm feeling really hurt. I'm feeling really angry. We need to feel the feel and we need to feel the pain. But we also need to share that with people we're safe with. So yes, you admit it to yourself, but then share it with someone that you feel safe with and give yourself permission to grieve. So if you've lost a relationship or if you've lost something that was important to you, we need to grieve that. And it's like, feel it. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling disappointed. Acknowledge it, feel it, and grieve it. But then confront the injustice of it. Because often where there's unforgiveness, it's because there's an injustice. It's like, it could be, but I don't deserve to be spoken to like that. Or I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm bearing all the consequences. So we need to recognize that what happened was wrong and in many cases undeserved. But forgiveness, remember, forgiveness does not mean excusing or minimizing. Forgiveness actually just means I am moving out this intruder because I don't want the intruder to contaminate and derail my life. The third thing, release the debt. Choose to cancel what you feel the person owes you, whether that's an apology, an explanation, or restitution. Restitution where you feel they need to do something right in order to right the wrong, i.e. return the money you borrowed from me. We may need to get to the place where we accept that we might never receive the things that we are hoping for regarding payment of the debt. And in doing that, know that you can still be free. And the fourth thing, bless and pray for the offender, because praying for the enemy transforms your heart and breaks their power over your life. So forgiveness is hard, but it's very liberating. It releases you to be unshackled by bitterness and resentment. It allows you to grieve the losses and feel the pain, and ultimately to let go and move forward. But not to move forward with, I've not dealt with anything. To move forward feeling liberated. To move forward feeling, you know what, I've taken charge of these feelings. I have activated my alarm system. I'm moving out what is taking up occupancy in an illegal capacity because I want to protect what is in my heart. I want to guard my heart because in guarding my heart, I'm guarding who I am and who I am becoming. Forgiveness is a process. We talk about it. We talk about it with the right people. And we journey with those people who are on a journey of restoration with us. And so, as I land tonight, isn't this what Jesus did? Didn't he show us forgiveness? Didn't he show us how he forgave on the cross? Didn't he show how he forgave even with his disciples? And if you look at his example, he didn't have supernatural powers when he was on earth. He lived as we live, but he lived exercising the power of God that God had implanted in his life. We have that same power. We have that same authority. So often in the counseling room, it's often said, but I'll never forgive, and how can I just let that person go? When you forgive, you're actually letting yourself go. And actually, that's more important. The Bible says it's mine to avenge, I will repay. When we forgive, we're actually getting out of God's way so that he can deal with the situation, so that he can deal with the person. So kind of as we wrap up tonight, we've learned a lot about the importance of the heart, the call to action. We need to guard it. We've looked at how to guard it with the analogy of the alarm system. We've looked at how we need to be open-hearted, but also cover our hearts. We've learned that we need to deal with stuff because otherwise it accumulates and contaminates and squashes out the good. We've looked at forgiveness, how forgiveness is actually a gift and incredibly liberating. So maybe as we kind of drop off the session together, maybe you need to actually just grieve something and start the forgiveness process. Maybe you need to actually feel what you're running away from feeling. And in the grieving, you actually it's because when you grieve, you actually open the bottleneck. And grieving actually allows you to start moving forward, because grieving comes with acknowledgement of the feeling, but also acknowledgement of the loss. And so maybe you need to start the process. Maybe you need to share this message with someone who's struggling. Maybe you need to be a little bit more guarded with your heart and not so accessible to anyone and everyone. Maybe you need to be more open-hearted. Maybe you need to just bring that wall down. Maybe you've barricaded your life in, and you need to allow the Lord, brick by brick, to gently just take those bricks down and allow God in as a starting point, because maybe you've barricaded him out in the process. So I pray that as we've done the session, that the Holy Spirit has just spoken to you and just spoken into your life. But respond. Don't just leave with, cool, awesome message. Do something. Respond. Because if you want a miracle, you got to do something. It doesn't happen accidentally. So I've been challenged by tonight, praying that you will grow from this, praying that you have a really good week, and maybe just look at your heart with a lot more awareness of heart self-care, being self-aware and self-care, because that's your job, not God's. Can't wait to see you next Tuesday. Have an awesome week. Bye, everyone.